Well, firstly, thank you so much for inviting me. When they emailed me to say that Cole Brauer wanted me to come and interview her on stage, I went, "Are you sure she meant me?" They went, "Yeah." And I burst into tears. Because, of course, we followed you all the way around the world. I remember the first time that you swept across my radar, James Tomlinson emailed me to say, "Did you know that the first American woman to sail solo around the world is just about to sail?" I went, "Oh, that can't be right. No, someone must have done that. No, women have done everything now." He went, "No, this is a..." And then he said to me, "More people have climbed Everest than have successfully sailed single-handedly around the world." And that blew my mind that there was one more thing that women had to do.
Everything.
And then, of course, at the same time, Maiden Girls sent her a message. As soon as I told them, they were like, "Oh, we have to send a message. We'll all be out there at the same time." So I used to wake up in the morning and I go, "Where's Maiden and where's Cole?" I felt a little bit of a traitor, but...
It's okay.
Okay, so I set out to be a ballerina and ended up being a round-the-world sailor, obviously.
Obviously, that makes sense.
But you started out wanting to be a doctor. Tell me, how did that translate into becoming a round-the-world sailor?
So I think it came down to I was getting great grades. Everything was going really well. I was doing great at the University of Hawaii sailing team. And I was working really hard in pretty much everything that I did. And what I found was that my outlet had started to become sailing. So anytime that I was stressed out or worried about exams and MCAT and whatever else, I just would go offshore sailing and just disappear. My phone would be left at home and I was gone. My parents really had no idea because I went to the University of Hawaii and they were in New York. So I think they thought I was an alcoholic because I was posting pictures of me drinking out of these very large trophies on Instagram. And my parents were like, "We don't approve of this. We don't understand. You're going to school to become a doctor. You know, why are you posting on Instagram that you're drinking out of these trophies? And it's just so inappropriate." And I kept trying to tell them I was winning the trophies. So it took a really long time to persuade my parents, who are, you know, not sailors, that this is normal in the sailing world to drink out of these very large trophies that are the size of us. And I found that, you know, I was studying so much and I was getting these, and maybe this is too much information, but I was getting these bed sores on my butt from sitting and studying and constantly writing. And I was like, why? Like, what's the point? Life is so ridiculously short. And my parents had actually persuaded me that I could do anything I wanted, which maybe was an inconvenient thing to tell me.
They may be rethinking that round
now. But it honestly came down to them. And as my dad said in the video, he had no idea what I was doing until last year in 2023. Because at that point, I was still nose to the grindstone, focused 110%. But it wasn't enough to actually post it on Instagram or show anyone or even talk at the dinner table, because I didn't want to say, I'm going to race around the world and then not be able to actually do it.
But what was it? What is it about the ocean? What draws you to it? What makes you feel the thing that we all feel out on the ocean? What is your thing?
So I love your movie. So when I asked for Tracy to be the interviewee, I've never met you until today, and this is by far the most exciting interviewer that I've ever had.
Who doesn't actually know what she's doing.
Very exciting.
Not a clue.
And one of the things that you say in the opening credits of Maiden, which, by the way, I've seen hundreds of times. I watch it religiously, every single delivery and every single race that I do offshore. I know almost every single word to every single thing. I know that sounds super obsessive, because I am. I'm super all or nothing.
No, I don't get that from you at all, that you're obsessive.
But in the opening credits, you say, the ocean is always trying to kill you. It never takes a break. And I don't know, there's something about that sentence, or those two sentences that are super important to me. Because for me, I believe that. I totally believe that the ocean has so much power, and I respect it. I don't need to go out there and try to battle the elements and get fire hosed in the face, and I don't need to look like these traditional vulva ocean racers.
None of us do.
None of us do.
Really.
It's not my mold. It's not what I was born to do. And I think that we've gotten rid of that mold, or we're trying to get rid of that mold. And I think it's actually safer. And I think you're going to get a lot more kids that are sailing in this beautiful place who go and they look at the ocean and they're terrified. Because we, for so many years in ocean racing, have been trying to terrify everyone. When the truth of the matter is that if you respect the ocean, the same way that we respect the people on our boat. And for me, the only person on the boat was me. So I am very kind in my mind to myself. I'm respectful for how I'm feeling. And that is something that for a long time ocean racers never had. They didn't have respect for the ocean. They didn't have respect for themselves or their teammates. Maybe they thought they did. That's my Aunt Gigi, by the way. But it really is truly understanding the power that the ocean has and not fighting it, but working with it. We as sailors, we're constantly working with it. We can't go directly into the wind because we should be respecting the elements.
So okay, ocean racing is one thing. You do know that all of us ocean racers, I mean, I've raced around the world 3 times once with 17 men. People say, why did you race with women? Didn't you not hear my last sentence?
That's too many men on a boat, to be honest. I'm so sorry, ma'am. We are going to pick on you tonight.
But so
it's okay. They've already paid. It's fine.
You know, we. Oh God, I knew we were going to be very similar, and this was going to be very dangerous. We all think that you're mad. You do know that. Those of us who sail around the world fully crewed, we think you're mad. What is it? What is it? Well, we know that. But what is the thing about being out there on your own? Tell me how you feel and what that's like. Because when we leave land, which is my favorite bit, when you leave everything behind, there's still 11 women there. It's very crowded. What does that feel like?
I think as a kid, I was always very good alone. I have a twin sister, and we spent every waking moment together, and I fought to try to be alone. And my sister always needed to be with another human, and that made us very different. I spent a lot of time running out to the marsh and trying to disappear and, pretending that I had these, fairies that were following me through this beautiful marsh that I grew up in Springs, New York. And so for me, it is no different. Me going off and racing around the world solo is like being back in that marsh. And maybe that's, cliche in some parts, bringing back your childhood, but it is true. It's a simpler time. You don't have to worry about anyone's personality but your own. Sometimes you're going to have a really bad day, but at least you only have to handle yourself. No one else is picking on you or telling you you're doing it wrong or telling you that, oh, hey, maybe you should have rigged this or not shrimped the kite or not done that. And nobody tells you anything because for me, it's just yourself. And so it's quite freeing.
Yeah.
The same way that you feel when you're driving alone, from one state to another state. Some people hate that. But you play a lot of music and it gets great. It's okay. You guys should try it sometime.
So, reading, as I say, we used to get up in the morning, I used to make sure that the maiden crew was still alive, and then I would make sure Cole's still alive, and then I would allow myself some breakfast. If I got up in the morning, there was 63 WhatsApps, I'd be like, oh my God! But one of the notifications I had from, because of course your Instagram was extraordinary, and one of the things on the video said, about this engagement, it's something we're trying to do on Maiden, but you took it to a whole different level. I think in 130 days you got 500,000 followers, which is, there are celebrities that envy that, sort of number. Extraordinary.
Thank you.
But what came through from that for us at home, and I'm still sitting at home, not sort of sailing around the world. When the disasters strike, now you're putting a brave face on it, and you're saying, okay, well, I'm dealing with this and I'm dealing with that. How honestly do you feel? I mean, is there a sense of fear? Is there a moment that you go through where you're like, I don't know if I can fix this?
I think what was so nice is that because I knew the boat so well, the same way that you and the entire team of Maiden knew the boat, you had done everything. You had done the plumbing and the electrical. You had set everything up. You knew the bulkheads. You knew what was the problem areas. That's the same thing that I had with First Light. I had been working on her for 4 years for an owner, and then when the boat got sold, I got purchased with the boat as the boat captain. And so then I thought, okay, this is great, still have my job, wonderful. And then they very nicely said, we want to make your dream come true. And that doesn't happen. It's a total fluke. It never normally happens. And they are wonderful people that sponsored me to go around the world. And I think the reason why I didn't have any fear is because, one, I knew every crevice of the boat. I knew where the weak points were. And as soon as I could hear that noise, I knew, the autopilot's disengaged. You know it about 10 seconds before because the autopilot makes a lot of noise. And maybe I'm very sensitive. My partner, he speaks a decibel high enough, and I'm like, please don't yell, please don't yell. I have such a sensitive ear, even with my headphones on, that there's a video that went out on Instagram, and it's footage of me about 10 seconds before we had a really horrible broach, and I knew because the boat was turning down a wave, and I happened to be sitting there watching Below Deck, which if anyone knows Below Deck is.
Okay, this is a very weird vision. I have to process it.
I know.
Okay, carry on.
Yes. And so I knew immediately that something was wrong, and I threw off my headphones and I started to run up on deck. I knew immediately. I was in my nice woolly socks and my sweatpants. Terrible idea. But I knew immediately what was wrong, that it had to do with the autopilot, and I had to get the boat under control. And you just get so used to that idea that there's no fear involved because your preparation has led you to being your own personal superwoman. You know exactly what's going to happen before it actually happens.
Yeah. So sailing in the Southern Ocean, before we used to sail in the Southern Ocean, we used to scare the pants off the newbies on the boat, and we used to say, the wind is going to be 120 knots, the waves are 80 feet tall. Just in joke. But what did you think about the Southern Ocean before you sailed in it? And then how did you feel about it when you got there to this, the wildest part of the world, on your own?
I was so excited beforehand. I was super stoked. I got fully prepared. I gave myself an IV. I made sure that I was very put together. I was highly trained, by the way. This wasn't just weird. I did a rig check. I went up the rig alone. I made sure that everything was stacked and ready to go for the first front. I was like, I am ready. And then the first front goes through, and I am tossed across, and I crack a rib. Yes. And then 2 days later, the autopilot ram, the primary autopilot ram conks out. And then 3 days later, the rudder reference conks out, which I'm not going to explain that. It's horrible. That's all I'm going to say. It's the end of your autopilot. And within seconds, before I'd even rounded my first cape, I was like, oh, shit. This sucks. Like, what am I? But the best part about it is that you know that you still have to get to another point, right? It's not like, oh, now I have to go into Cape of Good Hope and stop. That's actually the best part of the non-stop solo around the race, is that there is no stopping. And so that means that there is no waiting for port to fix something. You just have to do it. It's like what you said, just strap it up and move on and keep going, and that's all you get. And I called my mom, who, because that's what you do.
Always.
In the Southern Ocean.
Always call your mother.
Always call your mother. And I called my mother, and a couple people on my team were like, I think we should stop. I think we should just take the time penalty and stop in Cape of Good Hope, And I called my mom, hysterically crying, because I was like, Mom, this is horrible. It's a 3-day time penalty, which now, like 3 days out of 130, that's not bad. But I looked at, like, I called her and I was panicking. And my mom was like, you know, like, whatever, like, you're a Brauer, we don't turn around. Just keep going, you'll be fine, fix it. Who knew her hair was falling out from stress? But I think that when I left the Southern Ocean, it was because I was in the Southern Ocean for 2 months, nonstop, which is insane. People don't normally do that.
No.
Not even the IMOCAs.
Well, sane people don't normally do that.
No, that's a little too
carry
long.
on, yeah.
But I got around Cape Horn, and I had these dolphins that were actually following me around, and they followed me all the way to the Falkland Islands. And it was really wonderful because I ended up sleeping for 9 hours, which I don't know if you know. Sleeping consecutively 9 hours offshore is like almost illegal, like it's actually dangerous. I slept, woke up, and was like, oh my God, I hope we didn't hit anybody or anything at all. And it was the deepest sleep. And I got outside, it was super calm, super flat. I hadn't seen the horizon in 2 months. It was so beautiful. The sun was coming up, and I was like, wow, I don't remember anything what just happened to me. My ribs were healed, I was great. You know, and it's secondary fun. It becomes fun once it's over.
Yeah, it's great when it stops. Sailing is great when it stops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, best moment. Best moment of the race. What was the best moment?
Oh, God.
Apart from crossing the finishing line and thinking, thank God that's over.
Oh, no, that was my worst moment. Oh, my God. Realizing I had to go back and, like, pay taxes.
I think you might have had to pay taxes while you were away. Did you not do that?
I was very late. I was very late to paying taxes this year. Yeah, they had a little fine for me. I tried to explain it out. Anyway, besides the point. So it's actually going off the coast of Uruguay and Brazil. And so, as you know, there's the St. Helena High, right? And there's no wind there. And everyone was writing online, because I read every comment, just so you know, so don't write anything mean. People were writing, oh, she must be so miserable. She's moving at 2 knots. Oh my gosh, she's facing the wrong direction. This is, I loved it. I loved every single second of not moving, because it gave me a second after being just bullied by the Southern Ocean to actually like heal emotionally, do little workouts. I mean, I tried to sit still for 2 months and not move my legs because I was terrified at one point of like, again, getting thrown across and now cracking the other side. And so I didn't really move in the Southern Ocean. I tried to do the least amount of sail changes. I was very, very protective of my body and my mind. And then when I got to Uruguay and Brazil, I could finally run around the boat. I did more rig checks. I checked everything. I retaped everything. And I loved every single second of the calm after the storm.
Yeah. So what's next? I hate that question. When anyone says to me,
Everyone
what's
asks
next?
me that.
It's like, oh, for God's sake, I've just done something amazing. What? You want me to do something else? But seriously, what next, Cole?
Well, so there's a lot of plans in the works right now. I'm exploring almost all of them, and my poor partner has been following me around the world as I am exploring almost all of these plans. I mean, I'm looking at the IMOCA 60 fleet. I might have found someone to buy First Light, the boat that I sailed around the world. Yes, so there's a lot of plans in the works, and right now, I mean, of course, I would love to do the ocean race and the ocean race Europe, which I haven't signed the paperwork yet, but it is possible, with a team called Militia.
Your mother just started twitching then. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Carry on.
And there's a new project, or I guess a saying goodbye to my project, which is helping with someone else's new project. So I am, with the purchase of First Light, it is potentially by a 35-year-old woman from Australia. And I plan, and my parents have already murdered me on the phone, I heard you, I'm going to help her deliver the boat from Spain to Australia, which is halfway.
So she can learn from you.
So she can learn from
that's
my experience.
I love that.
And that's my next goal. That starts in November. And I really hope she sells the boat, because selfishly, I really want to be back out on the ocean.
So I'd just like to say, Cole, thank you so much for inviting me here to interview you. Never done this before. I think I might do this again, though.
Yeah.
Next time, I'll come and interview after the next thing you do, okay?
Yes.
And finally, before I leave, I'd like to say just such a huge congratulations. We followed you the whole way around the world. I feel like I know you even though we've never met, you know, because I read everything and watched you doing all these incredible things. And finally, could I just get my beautiful assistant, who is actually my daughter. Thank you very much. Beautiful assistant. I did that. The crew of Maiden have voted to make you the 4th only ever honorary Maiden. So, Cole, honorary Maiden.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
Cole Brauer.
Thank you.